we're here. It's all happening. Do you know we've got to get used to those 5-day weeks again next week? Next week. We've got one of them, and then I think there might be like 2 weeks, and then we've got another like short one. Let me just have a look here. Yes, sorry. You got 2 normal 5-day weeks. It's going to kill you next week.
Yeah.
You're going to hate yourself. Yeah. The 27th is a Tuesday, right at the end of April, which is also a bit of a screw up because I hate those middle of the week public holidays, don't you? Get in the way. Stupid,
just
right?
Get used to it again. I was in a meeting with someone yesterday who said, I'm just so tired. I don't even know what day it is. And I said, honey, get used to it. The long weekends are gone.
What is it? Tired is katele, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Katele.
Yeah, so katele. So you often will meet someone in like a lift or whatever. Back in the days when we'd go to the office all the time. Hey, morning, everybody. I forgot to even say good morning. I just started talking shit straight away this morning. It's right out of the starting blocks. So you would meet someone in a lift in like a Monday morning after the weekend, and maybe even a long weekend, and people would have had plenty of time to rest. And you'll meet them first thing Monday morning, and like someone is leaning against the wall of the lift, and you're like, "Hey, morning." They go, "I'm tired." You're like,
I can't talk to people like that though.
Hey, listen, we all get tired. I mean, sometimes you're tired and sometimes you're sick and tired. What irritates me is the way so many people on social media, when they're not winning an argument or when they don't have a good argument, they go, I'm so exhausted by this, and you're like, really? It exhausts you to argue with someone? Like, imagine if you actually had to do hard labor. Imagine if you had to like lift rocks, or you were a construction worker, or you worked in a mine.
Like the Jackson family or the Jackson kids.
The Jackson kids who had to pick up bricks at one end of the yard and take them to the other side of the yard. And then in the afternoon, they would do the opposite. Imagine how those people who are like so exhausted by like having an argument with someone on Twitter. I mean, sure, if only you knew what work was. You know what I rewatched? Sia, it came up on my Facebook feed, and I saw it last probably about 5 years ago. And at that stage, it was Breakthrough. Remember that talk that Simon Sinek does?
About social media?
No, it's like about millennials in the workplace. He basically broke it down into 4 areas. He says like a lot of young people in the United States, and I think he's talking about the United States because it doesn't apply as much in South Africa. It applies to some people in South Africa, but not everybody. And it doesn't have to do with how rich or poor you are. It's like, number one is bad parenting has given us an unbelievable uphill battle with so many young people. Number 2 is a level of impatience, which they have. There's this need to satisfy whatever you have and want now. The third thing is technology. And the fourth one is, I've just struck a blank. I think the fourth one has to do with, the environment. So the environments that we create for young people in work. And it was just really good to watch it again. And maybe I should post the link at the end of the show, and you can just refresh your memory, because it was so good. He was on some talk show, and he's talking about the challenges of kind of working with and hiring people in their, at that stage, early 20s, I suppose. And a lot of it's still true, although you do meet exceptions to every rule, right? And that's what makes those people so interesting.
Right.
So this morning, we're actually going to be joined by Simphiwe. I've been promising you for the longest time. Pumi can't make it today, so we thought, what a perfect excuse to bring Simphiwe in. Hey, Simphiwe, how are you?
Hi, guys. I'm good, and you?
Good morning.
And yeah, how are things going at the studio? I popped in yesterday. I did an impromptu visit to the studio, which I occasionally do. And Simphiwe looks at me and she's like, "What are you doing here?"
Is that the response you want to hear when you walk into your own office?
It was weird. It's like,
and she was sitting on her own in the production booth there, busy doing some work. And I'm like, "Hi, Simphiwe," and she's like, "What the hell? What are you up to?" I was in on.
But those are
I was in
good,
on
Gareth.
Tuesday.
Keep
Yeah,
everyone on their toes. Pop
that's
up.
not why I did
See
it.
what they're really doing.
No, I was curious to see like what was going on because I usually go in on Tuesdays and sometimes on Fridays, and I thought, well, I'm in the area anyway. Let me see what's happening.
Simphiwe, let me warn you ahead of time. I heard from HR that Gareth will also now be knocking at our doors at home to see
Yes.
what we're really doing.
That's right. In fact, I'm flying.
I'm not too worried.
I'm flying down to Durban today just to go and check on Sia, and I'm gonna like knock on his dad's door and like say hi to Mr. Sangweni, and then I'll just say, hey, just checking in, and then I'll leave again.
It's a mess. It's a mess down here. I don't know why I'm now feeling this way. Maybe it's not really cabin fever, but I think now it's time for me to get out of here very quickly. I'm now in our guest bedroom, which is more like away from everyone. And
it looks nice. I like. There's some nice. Yeah, the curtains look very, very fancy, and the picture behind you. Oh,
well, this is now just what my mother does on the daily very often. Yeah, so she changes this room up all the time.
Show me that picture behind you. That's very nice. I like that.
I don't know if you can actually really see, but it's even fabric that pops out of the art itself.
I like that.
I know by the time I come back here, it will probably be changed again. But, I've now isolated myself here because I think it's too peoply on the other side of the house. I've now realized I'm accustomed to my own things, my own pace at my own place. Here, everyone is in your business. I now have to whisper because I'm skinnering about them. Even things like my own stationery. Even just last week, we were talking about, my pens and, the way things are. I had to spend a good 10, 15 minutes last night looking for a decent pen to write with. I kid you not, I'm using my niece's Koki right now to write. This is how bad it's become. So now I'm like, get me out of here.
No, I mean, so aren't you
out of here?
Are you kind of stuck there, or are you going to book a flight because you drove down with your cousin, right?
Yeah, now I'm thinking he was originally going to drive up this weekend, and I'm thinking, do I have the patience to make it through?
Yeah,
it's like 2 more days is mighty, mighty long time.
I'm with you. It's like in any situation, even if, because I haven't stayed at home with my parents for, it's been, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years. No, it's even longer than that. It's probably about 20 years. And if I had to suddenly move back home, and a lot of people do, hey, like especially during lockdown last year, I think a lot of people who lost their jobs and things that couldn't pay the rent, then they had to move in with their folks again, or had to move in with other family members or whatever. And you might not be in your comfort zone. You might not have your favorite pen, Sia, but you have to just, you're lucky to have a roof over your head, right? So you don't complain too much. And maybe for the first few days it goes well and it's, oh, wow, this is good. It's nice to be with the family. But then on, one of the days, I don't know, it could be day 5 or it could be day 20. You look around and you're like, oh, these people are irritating me. I need my space.
Because I don't know why.
If they're letting you back in, you got to shut up and just grin and bear it, because otherwise they'll kick you out and they'll be like, go. You think you're so good at this? Go.
And I don't know why we also tend to forget this, but it's just like going on holiday with family members, going on holiday with a lot of people.
Yeah.
First couple of days, great.
Always.
Day 3, day 4, it's like shaky.
Yeah.
So right. Like this weekend, I moved from my room into the main bedroom because there's somebody else who's going to come live with us. And that has been quite interesting. It feels like I'm moving out the house, but I'm like, but there's my room. And it's like getting acquainted with like somebody else's room. You're just like, this bed is not... It's not the way my bed was.
It's not the same.
It doesn't. And it's like, but it's still the same house. And it's like, no, but it's so weird. It's orcs.
Wait until you really move out. You're gonna love that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
it's no fun. I would rather if I could have it back the way that it was, and we were talking about like millennials and how many young people kind of stay with their parents well into their 30s now. If I could redo it, I would have stayed longer. You get free food,
Yes.
free accommodation. You don't have to pay
Yes.
the rent. You don't have to like fix cracks that develop on the walls because it's not your house. Someone else takes care of that. You don't have to stress about like all the usual like washing and washing up. And I mean, you might have some chores to do, but it's so much easier than actually having to do it all yourself. And I'll tell you what, like living on your own, and I've been doing that for a long time now.
Ooh.
There's no
Gareth, don't make yourself sound 104.
Listen, it's by choice, and I do love it. There's way more positive than there is negative. But one of the things that I have very little appreciation for is cooking. And I don't care about food very much, but when you're only cooking for yourself, it's not fun. So you don't go to the trouble that you would if you were living with somebody, or if you had a husband or wife, or if you had a cousin living with you, or a roommate or whatever. Because at least if there's someone else, you can occasionally make something nice and go, hey, look at this. You do that on your own. What are you doing? Hey, look at this, but it's just me. That's kind of lame.
No.
This is why we have Instagram. You take pictures of your food and you share it. Like this is why we have social media. So you could be like, ta-da! Just say.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing that frustrates me about these cooking shows on TV is you can't taste it. So what's the point? It's food. It's not art. I mean, it might be a kind of art to some people, but it's mostly just food.
But it looks scrumptious. And then you also want to make it. And then next time you order something, you're like, oh, I know that it has to be a bit, al dente. And the terms that you have to use.
Listen to her.
And then you're into them more than we are.
Yes, I watch everything, all the cooking shows. And then I'll try out some of the things. I'm not into cooking, but baking. I make a mean cheesecake. So
really?
Yeah. Yes.
You're in trouble. Now you have to make one for us the next time.
Okay.
You've been at Cliff Central for a while. You went away and then you came back, and you don't realize like you must never admit shit like that on the show, because now you have to come back and make us a cheesecake. Now we're not going to let you go that easily. What's wrong with you?
Never ever thought to just brighten up our Mondays by bringing some cheesecake in.
Well, it's a lot of work, because I don't have like the right equipment. But but it's all worth it. It's like, ta-da!
I don't know. My YouTube and also on Facebook, the videos that pop up, my algorithms are clearly so off these days because I'm getting a lot of these cooking videos pop up, and I thought, read the room. I'm not the person to send them.
Maybe someone else has been using your logins.
There is this very smug woman who is just smug. There's just, I don't know what it is, but there's just something about her. No, it starts with an I. Maybe Simphiwe, you know her. She's like a middle-aged woman, Inina or something.
Oh, I'm horrible with names, so no.
She just has one of those faces that almost look like they're caving in a little and just smug.
That sounds horrible.
Sorry, I'm sounding so bitchy this morning and whiny. Okay,
you know what? At this
I'll
point,
warm up in 3 minutes. Don't worry.
At this point, I would very much like to play you Jane's insult of the week, which we've been promising you since Tuesday. I feel kind of bad about that. Today, it is none other than Sia Sangweni. So get ready, Sia. This is not going to be an easy ride for you. So here it is. This is Jane Malachi saying her.
I have not heard it either.
Are you ready, Sia?
Yeah, Simphiwe, you came into the firing line last week, so you know what this feels like.
Yeah, right. But she wasn't that hectic on me, so good luck, Sia.
Okay, let's hear.
Here it is for Sia. Jane, what do you have to say about Sia?
Sia, he left Cliff Central and he came back. Rina finds Sia somewhere at the beach in Durban. Sia was doing drugs. He was struggling. And we welcome him back with 2 hands. And look at him now. He's a CEO of ENCA. Just imagine, Sia, next time when you go, we're not gonna do say, Sia, you are a CEO of Cliff Central. We're gonna just close all the door and change the password. I don't think we'll welcome you back again. Next time when you left Sia Sangwen, think twice. Because this is Cliff Central. You are not the only person who left here and come back. Everyone, they think they can just go and come back. Sia Sangwen, think twice before you do something. I love you, but next time, I'm gonna delete your number.
There's this like ongoing theme. She's so mean. First of all, Sia was not on a beach doing drugs. I don't know where she gets that idea. So that's just made up.
That part I really wonder where she gets from. I really wonder.
But second of all, I mean, she said the same thing about Simphiwe. It's like she's got a real problem with people who leave and then come back. Like
Yes.
Jane has not got an open door policy. In other words, if you have caused chaos for her once, or you've upset her delicate balance once, she's never going to let you back in. And she added this part here, so you've got a 2-part insult, as if that isn't enough. Here's the rest.
Okay.
See, I heard that you had an accident. Next time when you drive, you must drive properly. I know that I don't have license, I don't know how to drive. But the way you just say, I had my accident, I tried to hold my brakes, but I found out that I was already in the accident. That's ridiculous, boy. Learn how to drive. It's not the first time you had an accident. Do you remember the first time when you drive your father's car? You had an accident with your father's car. You remember? Yeah. Hey, Baba, wait. Be careful.
She's got.
Where do we go from here?
Well, I had to stop her because she had more to say, but I thought it was going on too long. But she would have carried on all day. She had lots to say to you.
Wow.
It's also news to me that I'm the CEO of ENCA.
She thinks you're the CEO.
Congratulations.
Well done on that one.
Thank you. It's very great that I found that out. And she says it to me even in our personal conversations, that she really does own the fact that she's the reason I am back. She says, no. I told Gareth and Rena to call you.
Oh, no,
she's down and out.
She thinks you were down and out. She thinks that you basically, you couldn't, there's no way you'd be able to make it back on your own. And she had to intervene on your behalf.
And it's very interesting to hear that I was doing drugs. Okay. I don't even know. There's no response to that even.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
But she was also giving you like driving tips, even though she doesn't know how to drive. So, yeah.
No, but at least she did put that disclaimer up front, the fact that she doesn't know how to drive, but she can definitely give you tips regardless.
No, she gave lots of instructions for everybody. I mean, if we had to do like a list of suggestions for Jane, that could go on for a long time. Ben thinks she's hilarious, but he also finds her really annoying. So the two of them used to fight all the time.
Yeah, and depending how they're feeling about each other, those two. Some
people are so intimidated by Jane that they don't talk back to her. But actually, she probably respects you more if you fight with her, There used to be Friday fights. You remember there used to be like a fight every single Friday. Just before we went into lockdown, it was starting to become a problem. She would pick like a fight with somebody just because she was in a mood to like box. And she would look for trouble with someone. And it could be anybody on that day. But I'll say this, she's never looked for trouble with me. She's I think she's a bit wary of me.
Oh, of course.
Of course not.
Because she knows where her brain is butted. But anyone else, fair freaking
she's
game.
all right. I'm going to read you this poem. Someone sent this to me, or sorry, I found it on social media and I can't even remember. And then it was going around or whatever. But this is like my favorite poem at the moment. And a lot of people, I suppose, take it the wrong way, but I think it's really useful to, people are always blaming someone else. And this is a poem called Yourself to Blame by Mame White Mill. So just listen to this because it's hardcore, but it's also really good. It's powerful stuff. I like it. And I'm going to learn this by heart because it's one of those when someone's being, they're moaning. If you're sitting around people and someone goes, it's so hard to be me and the government and my family and whatever, then you say
I'm
this.
exhausted.
I'm exhausted on Twitter from arguing. If things go bad for you and make you a bit ashamed, often you will find out you have yourself to blame. Swiftly we ran to mischief, and then the bad luck came. Why do we fault others? We have ourselves to blame. Whatever happens to us, here is what we say. Had it not been for so-and-so, things would not have gone that way. And if you're short of friends, this is the best paragraph. If you're short of friends, I'll tell you what to do. Make an examination. You'll find the faults in you. You are the captain of your ship, so agree with the same. If you travel downward, you have yourself to blame. How do you like that?
Oh, okay.
It's just great. I love that.
So anything
Just
that goes
continue.
wrong in your life, blame yourself.
Yeah, you have yourself to blame. I like that. Take personal responsibility. And you know what? If you examine the situation, you find out like actually that wasn't my fault. Then cool. Then you can deal with what the other causes might be. The workplace, or maybe it is the government. Maybe it is your finances that someone else has been stealing money from. It could be anything. But start off with you. And I just love that poem because nobody says that anymore. These days, it's always somebody else's fault. All right, so we've got to get to a bunch of things this morning. We've got the Burning Platform coming on at 7, which is this morning with Yao Pepra, who's returning as he's been on the show before, so he's a returning champion. And we've also got some feedback from Tracy, who listens to us, about something that's going on during lockdown that maybe people haven't been paying as much attention to. And we always get really good emails from all kinds of people in all kinds of places. So if you want to get hold of us, Gareth at cliffcentral.com. But Sia's actually got a little update for us on something that the Chinese are dealing with. We were talking earlier about how when you live on your own, you start getting used to certain things. And Sia's now, staying with the family this week, and he's ready to go back home. But apparently more than 92 million young Chinese people happily live alone. That's you think you think you've got like loneliness in your life. It's amazing that 92 million people are so alone in China. They live on their own. Obviously, a lot of them never partner up, or they partner up too late in life to have kids, and it's a big problem. So now even the government in China is stepping in. Now, can you imagine how sad your life is if, in order to stop you from being lonely, you have to ask the government to help you? Listen to this.
I think
what's
it is so. I think it is so funny that this has to be an official, legitimate conversation amongst politicians, because it's that much of a problem in China. We've discussed before how China is concerned about the rate at which people, and particularly young people, are having children, and they worry that their population will be decreasing, and already is decreasing, but rather decreasing substantially because of it. But now they are concerned about relationships in particular amongst young people, because there's just this huge sector of the population who's very happy on their own, not in a relationship, not getting married. And I wonder what they're actually going to do about it. So far, the National People's Congress, this is China's annual political conference, has on their agenda to discuss this as a matter. They say they're going to pay more attention to marriage and love issues of the empty nest youths. Is that what you want to be described as a young person?
That's so embarrassing.
It's so sad. They're tabling this.
Yeah.
They're tabling this as a point of conversation as well on the agenda. They will provide these empty nest youths more services related to their physical and mental health, so that they can promote more relationships and marriages amongst them. But these are 92 million odd people who are saying they're actively choosing to be single. They don't feel the need to be in a relationship. They don't feel the need to be married, and they love the way their lives are right now. 41% of people who were recently polled in China cite the main reason being that they just actively choose to be single. And they're tired of useless romantic entanglements. That's what they said. And then another 38 exhausted, so exhausted. And then another 38% said being an empty nest youth was also a choice made by them because they're escaping from the responsibilities that come with starting a family. And then only just around 13% who were polled said that they were forced to live alone due to life and economic pressures, while only 7% said they're living alone because they were unable to find true love, so they aren't willing to settle.
All right, so only 7% are alone because they couldn't find true love. The rest sound like they've chosen it, and therefore you can't really feel sorry for them. It's not like sad. It's not pathetic, you know. I mean, if 7% couldn't find true love, so they're the ones who are saying, you know, I'm not lonely by choice. The rest are saying I'm on my own. I'm not necessarily lonely, but I'm alone. There's a difference.
I also admire that 7%, not to be shady or judge people in some relationships, but if I sort of squint at some people and if they were more honest with themselves, some people are in relationships of convenience, or, you know, it's not this big, great Disney romantic love, but it's like, okay, well, we relatively get along. I'm stable at work, you're stable at work, we relatively want the same thing. So sure, let's give this a shot. It's not that, oh yeah, you're the love of my life, and that's why we're making it happen.
No, you're right. So, like there's a lot of people who are only around other people because they're terrified of being alone. That's horrible. That's a bad place to be. But Fundo's going straight for the jugular. He's like, he doesn't care. China has a population problem according to him, so it's a blessing to them. He's not. He has no. There's no room for error there. And Bitleng is saying, "I'm an empty nest adult. Take me to China already."
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to know, like, how they're gonna roll it out. Like, are they gonna have like love centers? Like, I'm interested to know, because if you choose to be single, then why would I choose not to be single? Like,
every suburb and every village is going to have their own version of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette every week.
Basically.
Because of course we know reality TV is where you find true love, right?
Yeah. But like, what's the incentive? Are we going to get money? Are we going to get, like,
right?
If you are happy as a single person, why would you then volunteer to get into a relationship?
Do you know what they do in Norway and Sweden and Finland and Denmark, which is, you know, like the Scandinavian countries also have a negative birth rate. They have less people having children and living together and getting married than almost any other geographical area on Earth. Do you know what they do?
Nope.
What?
Talk about incentives. So they actually give away holidays, but only to couples. So if you're in your 20s, I think maybe your early 30s, but there's a cutoff. At like 35, they stop giving a shit about you. But if you are between 20 and 35, I think it is, and you have just started a relationship, then the government will actually send you, this is in the days before COVID, obviously, when travel was easier, but they would send you to like a nice tropical island for a week on the government's money, just so that you could go there, have sex, and make children, because they're worried that their population is going to decline really badly. So that's what they were doing not so long ago.
It is bizarre to me when the state get involved. It's a little
horrible.
Like
when
your parents getting involved, or someone trying to set you up.
It's some older relative trying to force you into a relationship or a marriage. I think that's kind of the impression I get. But it's even worse because it's not a relative, so they don't even know you. They're like, oh, citizen number 4299731 is still single. We'd better put them with citizen 33251143. I mean, can you imagine? Like the state computing system is busy matchmaking people behind the scenes. Oh, we've noticed this person on social media. Well, I mean, they don't have social media like we do in China. Maybe that's what they need, is like Tinder.
In 20 years' time, if they do set up a successful relationship, what do they then talk about? It's not like, oh, we met at a coffee shop. What?
Yeah.
Oh, the
Government.
government emailed me their profile.
Oh my
Your
wow.
children, like, Mom, Dad, how did you get married? How did you meet?
Yeah.
Well, son, the government sent me an email with your mother's details, and then they forced us to spend a week together in Shenyang province.
Oh wow.
It's not
I can
good.
already see some of the stories starting off like people saying back in the day you had to worry about going to war. Now we have to worry about being in relationships, and how I didn't want to be in this relationship, so I had an affair with this lady. Oh man. I could just see it already.
And then suddenly like if relationships don't work out, then you blame the government, right? You're like, well,
Yeah.
we didn't get our state love subsidy this month, so we decided to call it quits.
Love subsidy.
Imagine.
Are you guys shocked by a number like that, 92 million, in relation to their population? I wonder what it would be in this country.
SA has a lot of love.
You think we have a lot of love? I think
Yes.
we have a lot of side chick and blesser and blessee action. That's what we've got.
Yeah, and girls are very proud of that, Some of them will be like, yeah, my man is in a marriage and I'm happy. What's the term? The marriage is not that serious.
That's right.
So
this is oh wow, it's past. We've got to get to headlines. Let me do that quickly. So if you've just joined us, Simphiwe is with us, Sia is with us, and we are here to keep you busy on a Thursday morning and to let you know what's happening in the world. So on to the headlines. First of all, Parliament has named a committee which will, I don't know why it's taking them so long to decide what to do with Busisiwe Mthethwa, but this woman is like, she's like Teflon. You cannot get rid of her. So none of the ANC MPs who are associated with the so-called Radical Economic Transformation grouping will serve on the committee to investigate whether Busisiwe Mthethwa is fit for the Office of Public Protector. So definitely some things happening behind the scenes of the ANC. Whether or not this will result in action, nobody seems to know. But the RET, that's the Radical Economic Transformation faction, they support Mthethwa and they claim that they can't support a DA motion. However, the beleaguered Mthethwa can still bank on the support of EFF leader Julius Malema as a voting member and EFF MP Ompile Maotwe and the ATM, remember them, Tandiswa Marau, who are non-voting members. But they're all going to be on that.
Is ATM Hlaudi Motsoeneng?
No, ATM is Jimmy Manyi.
Manyi. Mzwanele, man.
Mzwanele. But he used to be Jimmy. He was fine with Jimmy until just a short while ago. Now suddenly it's
brand, Gareth,
and he gets upset. Hey, if you call him Jimmy now, he's like, no, Mzwanele. We had him on the TV show not so long ago. But yes, I do think it's funny that Mzwanele Manyi's party is called the ATM because many people see politics as a way to get money out of a machine. That's all they see. So I just want to quickly, before we move on to the next headline, just go to Brandon's comment here. Brandon says, being single can be very gratifying. Do what you want, stay out as late as you want, hang out with who you want, and no one to argue with. Never mind those undisturbed weekend snoozes. That is a big plus, and Brandon's on the money. But Sliced 19 says, if you find yourself struggling with loneliness, you are not alone. And yet, you are alone. So very alone. That's so mean. I love it.
But it makes so much sense.
If you came to this show for like sympathy, it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
All right. So Busisiwe Mthethwa, and then you need to know something else about China. Beijing now has more billionaires than any other city in the world. That's according to.
I need to move there.
Well, you're going to be single, but you might have billions. That doesn't sound like such a bad deal. The Chinese capital added 33 billionaires last year, according to Forbes' annual rich list. Now hosts 100 billionaires. That's amazing. Narrowly beats New York City, which hosts 99. And New York has held the top spot for the last 7 years. China's quick containment of COVID-19, the rise of technology firms, and stock markets helped it to gain the top spot. Although Beijing has now got more billionaires than New York, the combined net worth of New York City's billionaires remains at $80 billion, which is greater than that of the counterparts in Beijing. Hey, listen, it must be so competitive in that world of billionaires. I mean, I'm not going to have a whole lot of sympathy left over to, oh, shame, China has more billionaires, but they have a little bit less. Shame. I'm sure they'll be fine.
What a
Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel, who wears those marvelous pantsuits that just like, they almost look like she's had 100 of them made in different colors, but they're all the same. They look exactly the same.
has posters of her like up in his bedroom.
Bulelo is actually the biggest Angela Merkel fan, and who would have known that was what turned him on? But Angela Merkel is his idea of a very sexy person. So, it takes different people, different strokes, as they say, that different people like and turn different people on. But yes, his dream girlfriend is Angela Merkel. So she is very interesting, right? She is in favor of tightening virus restrictions in Germany for a short period to stem rising case numbers, her spokeswoman said on Wednesday. Merkel has backed calls for a national lockdown, but a short one. Ulrike Demmer said this, noting that the country's health system was under growing pressure. That's her spokesperson. Germany has been in some form of shutdown since November, but has struggled to bring case numbers down in recent weeks with a surge in the British variant of the virus. At their last meeting in March, Merkel and the leaders of Germany's 16 states agreed national rules, including strict shutdowns and possible curfews in areas with more than 100 new infections per 100,000 people over 7 days. Now, that's not a lot of people. But you see, there's an additional complication to this, is that there are huge numbers of people in Germany who are sick to death of lockdowns now, and they're actually protesting openly in the streets. And they're saying, hey, listen, Angela Merkel, if you want to put us under lockdown, there's a vote coming. There's an election coming soon, and we will get your ass out of there. So she's treading very, very carefully at the moment. You remember Tiger Woods had that crash, right? Back in, what was it? January, February 23rd. That's when it happened. Apparently, they say he was driving at an unsafe speed, nearly double the speed limit when he crashed in California in February. Woods' SUV was traveling at up to 87 miles an hour, which is about 140 k's an hour. That's fast because he wasn't on a highway. And it flew off the road and flipped several times during the accident in Ranchos Palos Verdes, leaving the 15-time major champion with a shattered right leg. I've been in accidents, right? And I've caused accidents, luckily, where it was just me. And you relive that so many times in your head. Now, just imagine if you were Tiger Woods. You've been this incredible golfer, and you've been winning. You went through a bit of a difficult patch when you broke up with your wife and you were cheating on her and all that stuff. But then you get back into it, and people just love you, and you're so good. You're so naturally talented at golf, and you work so hard at golf, and then suddenly, because of one bad decision, like you drove home too fast. Now you have a shattered leg. You might never really reach the level of golf that you were at before. And I remember with my accidents, you just relive it over and over again. In your head, you imagine, what if I'd gone slower? What if I had swerved this way instead of that way? What if I was on this piece of road rather than that? What if the weather was different? You try to figure out in your head. I suppose it's part of why these things make an impression on us, is because your brain wants you to make better decisions next time. But I feel sorry for the guy. I really do. It's just awful. And it was all him. Like, there were no other cars involved.
And then with all of that, also add in the fact that the world is watching in his case.
Oof, so it's all embarrassing.
Pressure, and you try to watch TV and you're an item on the news bulletin, and then there's scandals, and then you're on the gossip shows, and there's speculation about you. You feel all of that. And I'm sure your sponsors and business associates are calling, and they're adding pressure to you as well. I do not envy his life at all.
Yeah.
Yonder's just done some maths, and this does make sense. the headline of the city with the most billionaires does make sense. If New York has 100 people who are billionaires, then the minimum total should be 100 billion, not 80 billion. That is what it said in the article. I'm just going to go back to it quickly because that doesn't make any sense, right? This is the BBC.
This
So
is
let me
involving
just go
some
back.
counting. Just want to
Well,
add that.
Okay. So the Big Apple, the combined net worth of New York City's billionaires remained at 80 billion. Oh, sorry, not 80 billion, 80 billion more than the ones in Beijing. So that was my fault. I read it wrong, but it's the net worth of New York City's billionaires is 80 billion greater than that of their counterparts in Beijing. So thank you very much for that. Yonda and Tyrell doing a little calculation. Tyrell's calculation is about Tiger Woods' speed. Now that one I can say I did read properly. So they said it was 84 to 87 miles per hour that he was going. That's 140 kilometers an hour. So that was the number for Tiger Woods. So I didn't get that one wrong, but the Beijing billionaires, that was my fault. So thank you. You see, people are paying attention. You can't screw up this time.
Shout out to y'all.
Ruth says Angela Merkel and sexy shouldn't be in the same sentence. Ask Mbulelo. Don't ask me. I didn't think that she was, but Mbulelo does. And finally, this headline is from Joe Biden. He's that very, very old man who doesn't know what day it is, but he's the president of the United States, and he holds press conferences where he kind of just drifts away in the middle of the press conference. Joe Biden will unveil measures on Thursday aimed at curbing rampant U.S. gun violence. Because, of course, we all know it's guns that kill people, not people who kill people, right? It's not knives that kill people. These are the same people who will tell you that climate change is killing people. But it's definitely guns. It's not people. Anyway, he says he's going to prevent the spread of untraceable ghost guns. He's come under pressure from his Democratic Party to tackle the bloodshed, most recently highlighted by mass killings as far apart as Colorado, Georgia, and California. I hope they're going to ban cars because those also kill people.
And
very
knives,
dangerous. Yeah,
everything.
In fact, you shouldn't be allowed to have knives in your kitchen because they can definitely kill people. And Joe Biden is the guy to sort this out for us. He's going to basically remove everything. He's going to put everyone in padded cells so we can't hurt ourselves. That's what he's going to do. In addition to come on, man. In addition to relatively modest measures on the politically hypersensitive issue, Biden will announce his nomination of David Chipman, who is a gun control proponent, to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, which is the agency that will fight gun violence in America. Exciting stuff. More government. That's what people need. More government. It's just terrific. Ban people, says Co.vid Solutions, because people kill people.
Yeah, that's a great solution, hey? Just one by one.
This is a bit of a tangent, but whenever we receive a message from Co.vid Solutions, bar the name,
no.
I'm always intrigued by their profile picture. Is it Bill Gates with blue fingers?
Oh, wow. I didn't even notice that. It looks...
It always bothers me whenever I receive a message. It's like Bill Gates with something on those blue fingernails. That's some sort of like chip on. Sorry if you're not watching, because this doesn't mean anything to you.
That's a good, but that's an interesting. I didn't even notice it until you said
wow.
that. So
now you can't see it.
Theorence Cameron, that's a hell of a name, says, please post that poem. You see, there was one person who liked my "You Have Yourself to Blame" poem. So I will. I'll put that up on the website as well. You can go and read it there. And you should memorize it. And just whenever someone's moaning and complaining at the dinner table, or if you meet them socially, then you just bring that up. You're like, you have yourself to blame, and you just recite the poem. That'll shut them up, put them right in their place.
Gareth, it came in as a suggestion earlier, but you should send it to WhatsApp Pete as a continuation of yesterday's show.
Yeah, we were talking about a friend of mine on a WhatsApp group who's become a bit of a problem, and we decided to give them the arbitrary name of Pete. So I said I'd keep you updated. No new stories, no breakthroughs from the point of view of Pete or the rest of us at this stage, but I'll keep you informed. Co.vid Solutions says that picture is Bill Gates with Edward Scissorhand vaccine needles. Oh, okay.
Okay.
People really don't like Bill Gates, hey? They really don't like him. He's getting a lot of heat from people. And listen, he is a strange person. He's like a super turbo nerd, but I don't know that he's this evil. It seems to me like he would have had to be so unbelievably strategic so long ago. If he's this evil mastermind whose plan it is to microchip all of us or to give us dangerous vaccines, if this was his plan, then starting a software company is a hell of a way to go about that. I'm just saying, it's a very complicated, it's not an obvious evil genius path to world domination. I'm less likely to believe that than many other things.
And then what?
Apparently, Tracy says carrots. Too many carrots can kill you. Vitamin D is a killer, so we have to ban carrots as well. Basically, guys, we have to ban all the things that could be dangerous to us, which means everything, including Simphiwe's cheesecake.
No.
No, we're going to ban it because it could be dangerous.
You could choke on it. It's bad.
I want to go to an email that we got from Tracy. So, Tracy, if you remember, she's been on the show before, and Tracy's got one or two problems, and she needs a specialist physiotherapist once a week, and she actually does see a specialist physiotherapist once a week. She runs a private practice from a government special care facility for severely physically and mentally challenged people. The facility has been closed for a year because of COVID and the lockdowns. It's only just reopened. That's meant that Tracy, who listens to us and sent the email, hasn't had therapy for over a year. I am fortunate, she says, that I can also go for hydrotherapy, which is similar to physio, but in a heated swimming pool. It's best for me to have both forms of therapy. While I understand your perspective on lockdowns, the facility in which my physio works had to close. The people that benefit from this center cannot afford to get sick, given their already compromised health. As a philanthropist, I can only wonder how many other care facilities have had to close their doors because of the pandemic, and more importantly, how many people in need have had to go without therapies, basic care, educational input, etc. That's just something I found to be a COVID story that she says is often overlooked. I'm telling you, we'll only begin to calculate the full cost of all of this stuff in 10 years from now. And we'll look back and go, wow, that completely, we missed that. There was something we didn't know how to deal with, and there was something we didn't have answers to. And I think Tracy's right. Like, we're just starting to scratch the surface on what the real long-term consequences and costs are going to be.
Also, there's just too much to calculate.
Oh, yeah. No, it's impossible.
There's too much on the floor here as a cost.
This is why I don't believe like Bill Gates is an evil genius who made this happen, because there are too many unknowns. And if this was his plan, it's not a great plan. It's not the best evil genius plan. But I don't think he's I don't think he's a bad person with bad intentions, but he's certainly involved in a bunch of things that he shouldn't be involved in. Like, he's not trying to get us to eat less meat, but he owns apparently the most farmland in the United States. Now, why has he been buying up farmland if he doesn't want us to eat meat? Some of that farmland is obviously for grazing for cows. So there are a lot of weird things going on with Bill Gates. Listen, I wouldn't want to be married to that dude. I think he's weird. I do think
Firstly, he needs a better moisturizer, if he even uses one. I doubt it.
Oh, is that your feedback?
He just needs a better moisturizer. But also, I'll reserve my opinion, because maybe in exactly 7 years' time, at this hour of the day, we'll be bowing down to him for the first of 3 times that we're praising and hailing the great Bill Gates.
I remember I went to that talk that he did in, I think it was it was either Mamelodi or Garankuwa, and he came out to South Africa, and it was part of the Nelson Mandela Memorial Lecture. And everybody was there. Like, you cannot believe, like, the great and good all pitched up, including Cyril, like everybody. And the funny thing was, like, all these people who come from like the fancy suburbs were all driving their flash cars into this township to go and listen to the richest man in the world. It was like so weird. It was like only South Africa could put on a show like that. You got people driving between the shacks to get to this hall, and then they get to the hall and they listen to this, at that point, the richest man in the world, giving everybody else a lecture. You're like, okay, this is very weird. I looked around and you see all the, the most wealthy and famous and important and powerful South Africans around you. And you're like, this is so strange. We're in a township. We're listening to this billionaire from America. And all these people have taken time out to drive their shiny, fancy cars through the shacks to get here. It was so odd. Very, very weird. The contrasts were just crazy. I'll never forget that. Very strange.
Why do I picture him as someone who's actually smaller than he appears on screen?
As in height.
Yeah, it's just a little shrivelly.
You really don't like his appearance. Like, this is the second time you brought up wrinkly and shrivelly. You think he really needs that moisturizer badly. See, just because you are one of those people who knows how to use moisturizer properly, don't be hating on the rest of us who don't. All right.
Don't get me started on Melinda and just a good flat iron and a better dye job. But anyway, they are great. They're great people and do amazing things for malaria and advancing the world with technology. Sure. Who am I?
Yeah, exactly. So today is the day, 27 years ago, that Kurt Cobain died, and he died at the age of 27. And he, of course, committed suicide. Didn't they find him? They found him. He was hanging, right? When they found him, he hanged himself. I think that's what happened. He was married to Courtney Love at the time, famous for Nirvana and all of their songs in the 90s. That's like that grunge rock explosion that happened, and very talented musician. And there were lots of people who were just in love with him. Like, especially there were women who like were screaming and throwing like their clothes at him when he was on stage because they just wanted to marry him. And then he ended up with Courtney Love, who's like the biggest disaster in the world. Oh, it was a shotgun. That's right.
Yes.
Very messy.
He also left a note.
A shotgun.
Sure.
You got to be so.
It's been 27 years ago.
I do remember the shotgun thing now. I don't know why. Oh, it was In Excess's Michael Hutchence who hanged himself. It wasn't Kurt Cobain. I mixed up my lead singers there. But this guy, can I just ask a favor? If anybody is thinking of, like, please don't kill yourself in the first place. But if you're going to, like, a shotgun is very messy. You're really making it difficult for emergency services. Like, try to keep it tidy, if you don't mind. No, I mean, this is practical advice. People don't say this because people are going to lie to you, and they're going to say at that point you are very, very depressed and you don't know what to do. But I'll tell you what, a little bit of practicality right at the end could save a lot of time for emergency services workers. And I don't think, if you're going to do this, I don't think you should do it in a messy way. Please, let's be considerate to those people who have to clean up afterwards. All right?
But if you are
noted.
in a...
Noted.
Not noted. Not to condone it or anything, but if you're in that space to do something that tragic, I highly doubt you have the mindset of, oh yeah, let me think about others. You really are in such a horrible space. Yeah, that's a lot of your concerns. Let me put it that way.
Sia, here is a really practical thing that you can help with. Hermine says, Sia, I need a better moisturizer. What are your recommendations? This is Sia's favorite area of expertise. Okay. So go ahead.
Hermine, we need to have a longer, more in-depth conversation about this. Where are you moisturizing? What do you need exactly? Do you need a serum? Do you need something to rejuvenate? Do you need an anti-wrinkle something? Do you need an SPF something? Is it for your face? Is it for your hands? Is it for your neck? Is it for those parts that we should not be leaving out of the equation, like your back, the sides of your body, where the muffin top starts to form. Is it for your thighs, anti-cellulite? That's a long conversation. Sorry. Message me.
I'm surprised you didn't ask about his skin, if he has like combination or dry, or, I'm surprised you didn't bring that up.
I think Sia's trying to skirt the issue because he's actually passing it. He's passing the buck to someone else. He's saying you need a proper evaluation. You need an assessment. In other words, different moisturizers for different people, right, Sia?
And also different parts of your body. Quite honestly,
how many different kinds of moisturizer do you have?
Let me just think in terms of what they all do.
Oh, Sia. Sia. Sia.
Hang on, no, it's going to be the thing.
Just 3 for my face.
Yo, 3 different ones just for your face.
That's a lot.
5, 6, 7 in total.
7
How much
different
do you
kinds.
spend?
Yeah. No, but something's last a longer time, like something just for my feet, because ashy feet are not a thing, so we're not going to do that.
Sure.
This is an investment I'm very happy with, okay? So I don't need to send any child to school, so this is what I'll do with my money. Thank you very much.
Sloot Steenkamp says, I don't even have hand cream. So
why are you assuming that is how Sloot sounds, Gareth?
I'm thinking that's how Sloot sounds. Sorry.
Well,
guys.
I'm judging with the hand cream. I don't carry one in my backpack, but in my handbag, I always have a hand cream. Like, you can't have ashy hands. Like, what if you're going to take pictures? No.
I mean, this is an important thing. Absolutely, Simphiwe. And we are going into winter now, so people have to think about this stuff. You don't want to be ashy. All right, everybody? Let's not be ashy.
Yeah. The elbows, please, just add a bit more. That's all I'm saying.
Someone's calling me outrageous here. Asha says, so if we've taken up too much time on the planet, then don't additionally waste the time of emergency services while you're on your way out. Gareth, you are so outrageous. Well, got to tell you, that's how I see it. I often tell my husband when my mind starts to go, just use a pillow and be firm. That's what Tracy says when it comes to if she becomes a problem, she'll get her husband to use the pillow and be firm to put her out of her misery. Sure. People are dark, hey? People are dark.
If those are conversations that you have, okay.
That's a loving relationship right there.
No.
Yes.
I'm not okay with that. I'm a bit traumatized. I need courage.
Making something more dramatic.
We have to end this insanity because we've got the Burning Platform coming up next, and Yao Pepper is going to be joining us as a return champion from a previous Burning Platform. We're going to chat to him about all the things that are going on in the news. It's going to be a slightly shorter Burning Platform today, so we'll try to get through all of it by 7:30. But Yao is our guest, and he will join us shortly. The Burning Platform, brought to you by Nando's. That is Nick.
Do you grunt when getting out of the car? Creak when getting out of bed? Do you walk into a room and forget why? Are you having trouble in the sack? Is the hump in a slump? Join me, Chris Haven-Smith, and Dr. Mark on the T-Health Show every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m, where we talk to medical and allied professionals about those serious and not so serious medical lifestyle issues. The T-Health Show, sponsored by the T-Clinic. The T-Health Show is available on podcasts. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
After the year you've had, we know all you want is a great economic quarter. Ijabupilo ka knife and fork with a Nando's quarter chicken and any single side for only 49 Rand. Nando's. Fire it.
cliffcentral.com on a Thursday morning and almost the end of the week, a short 4-day week this week, but we've got lots to talk about, and it is brought to you by Nando's, as always, where we get to fire it up. And this morning is no different. I'm very pleased to see Yao Pepra. You're looking happy and healthy and strong, my friend. How are you?
Very good, Gareth. How are you?
I'm good. I've actually, that shirt that you're wearing, you gave me one like that maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
About 6 years ago, yeah, that's right. Well played.
That's very nice. So let's just tell everybody. Sorry?
I also saw your post the other day about your rankings in terms of podcasts. And I'm saying congratulations. 7 years, who would have thought this is where you'd still be, right?
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So Yao, just to give everybody some background, Yao is by qualification, he's a chartered accountant. That was years ago, but he has also been a shareholder in an ad agency which focused on below-the-line marketing. He's got businesses in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, among others. In 2015, he was part of the team that set up something called the Silibona Educational Trust, and they sponsor young women from previously disadvantaged backgrounds in university attendance. He's also a member of the board of trustees of the St. Dunstan's Association for South African War-Blinded Veterans, and he is currently working with the Western Cape. Right, you're in the kind of in that space where you guys deal with Westgrow, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I just want to correct you quickly on the business on the initial thing. I don't have the business the ad agency that I was part of. Actually, I helped them set up some operations out there, but I don't have businesses there.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it was kind of all under the same rubric, though.
Tell
me about Westgrow, because I've heard this name bandied about, and sometimes they come up in the news. What is Westgrow? What do they actually do?
So, I mean, it's in a nutshell, it's the Western Cape's investment promotion agency, but we not only focus on investment, we do tourism, exports, and film promotion as well. Every single province has got an agency similar to ours. So there'll be GGDA in Gauteng, there's ECDC in the Eastern Cape, TIKZN in KwaZulu-Natal. All the provinces have got an investment promotion agency, and it's really it's an arm of the government that really helps them achieve their economic growth agenda, as well as the job creation or job facilitation agenda as well.
So what do you do for them, Yao? Are you involved in the work that they do around overviews and risks and opportunities, or are you one of the people who makes those things happen?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess right now I'm part of the Exco. My role, so there's, as I said, there's four mandates that we have: tourism being one, exports, investments, and film being the other four. So my role looks after exports, film, and investment promotion, as well as we've got a partnership with the Invest SA One Stop Shop, so the national part of the DTIC, which I look after as well. And then also we recently set up something called a district unit, because we were finding that a lot of our investments were landing in the city of Cape Town. And so
Right.
how do we take the services that we offer to the rest of the province outside of the city of Cape Town? So the district unit is focused mainly on trying to help all the other municipalities. We've got great offerings, how we help them realize that and how do we help them take that to market.
Now, tourism, since it's part of the portfolio, tourism has had a really, really tough time. I've seen this week a lot of headlines from people in the tourism business who are wailing about, and rightly, justifiably so, how lockdowns basically destroyed their business. And I know that there are hotels and there are people who are very much more involved in, travel and tourism on a daily basis. Things like, transport, wine farms, places that in the Western Cape in particular rely on those international tourists and occasionally, obviously, a large contingent of local tourists. But these businesses have been hit probably harder than any other. Maybe the eventing business is also in that category. So what's the status at the moment? Because these guys must talk to you a lot of the time and say to you, listen, can't you help us? Because we have no way of fixing any of this while we still have restrictions on international travel, which in the case of South Africa is often those travel restrictions are imposed by international governments, not by our own government.
Yeah.
But here, have we seen any improvements in travel and tourism since we went out of hard lockdown and people have been allowed to travel interprovincially, for example?
Yeah. So I mean, you're rightly, as you rightly said. I mean, and as much as lockdown, our own lockdown might have hurt quite a bit. We've been open for a while, and international travelers have not been allowed to come, which has been weighed quite heavily on a lot of our industries. I mean, restaurants, etc., etc. But what that's also done is it's helped people reposition their offering towards the domestic market, right? So, and it's been good though, because right now it also helps us realize the value of our citizens, because a lot of the time we're pitching some of our offerings to international travelers, but now with interprovincial travel being open, we can actually travel locally as well. Tourism, I must say, is not my forte, so I don't want to say something that is incorrect, but I'm seeing that there is a slight pickup. The damage has been big. I mean, some of our big hotel groups, like I'm looking at the Cape Sun, which is next to our offices, it still remains closed, and it's got a whole bunch of bedrooms. Like a lot of the staff is on a fraction of their salaries that they earn. So the bleeding is still happening, but we're hoping when those international countries that are our source markets get vaccinated, they'll feel a whole lot more confidence to allow people to travel towards us. And as much as our vaccination drive might be a bit slower, it'll help spur some of the economic growth from our international source markets. So we continue to advertise to them, and also we're trying to do new stuff. Like, for example, it would be great if we could find a way for people to come in and work from here, but not breaking the laws. But like, say for example, they still work for the companies that they're working for, but they're based over here, putting money back into our economy. So I think we launched something with Airbnb a couple of weeks ago where they provide discounts on people that stay here for more than 28 days, to try and get, I mean, like if you look international, some of the countries overseas, I think Estonia was the first one to do this. They've got a nomad visa, for example, which is just basically incentivizing people to come and stay there for whilst they work from home.
Well, I mean, if the lockdowns and restrictions have taught us anything, it is that it doesn't really matter where in the world you work from, and you may as well work from a place where it's pleasant. And the Western Cape is right up there in terms of like pleasant environment.
It absolutely is. I mean, it's a beautiful, but this country as a whole, to be honest, and I know I get paid by the Western Cape to punch the Western Cape, but if I look at this place, man, we live in a pretty special place, man. I travel quite a bit, and there's very few places that you have what we have anywhere in the world.
Well,
we just have to acknowledge that.
Absolutely. I was talking to a friend of mine over the weekend, and she was saying to me, you've got to stop whining about these lockdowns and these restrictions, because we don't have it as bad as some countries. And even if we do have it as bad as they do, imagine being in lockdown in England, for example, where not only can you not go down to the pub, which is pretty much the only thing English people do socially, but if you were allowed to, it's freezing outside, and it's only starting to get warmer now.
for 2
and
days.
yeah, and it's nowhere near as pretty as some of the parts of South Africa where you can go on a little holiday, or you can take a weekend away, and because they don't have business, a lot of these places have dropped their rates, so you might be able to do things that before were unaffordable to you because the only people who could afford them were people who had foreign currency.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to take
yeah.
feedback and stop complaining.
Yeah, and yeah, she's absolutely right as well. I mean, I was speaking to a mate of mine who just moved over to the Netherlands. Their lockdown, I think they had lockdown at 9 o'clock. 9 p.m. is their curfew. Yeah. It's cray. I mean, like we get midnight and we're like, midnight. What happens after midnight other than naughty stuff?
Well, yeah, listen, it gets messy after midnight. But what I will tell you is, because I went out on Saturday night in Umhlanga, and the funny thing is that the people who used to drink heavily at 3 a.m. are now doing that at 11. So, in other words, they've condensed their social hours to a much more narrow window, but they're still doing the same amount of drinking and partying. It's just been condensed.
Which is good because I know the liquor industry was also quite hard hit, and a lot of jobs were shed in that industry. But also, I mean, like it's a conversation that's been thrown around quite a lot, in that we have to also look at how our relationship with alcohol in this country, right?
Well, yes. I mean, while we're talking about that, whenever Tito gives us his budget, he talks about the sin taxes. But the other thing that he always talks about is the fuel levies. And I saw a tweet yesterday from somebody while I was thinking about what we were going to talk about on the show this morning, a guy called Co.vid21 who said, when you get 700 rands petrol now, 475 rand of that goes to the government. Cheapest. And obviously, they're going to say it's to build roads. They're going to say it's to, keep infrastructure up and to make sure that there's a free flow of traffic and metro police and whatever else they say they're going to have to pay for with that. But 700 rands petrol that you're for 475 rand of that is going to the government, according to Co.vid. So now, I have no reason to doubt that his numbers are right, but that is fairly disgusting because we've got government saying to us, we want to stimulate business. We want to help people to get around. If you have to catch 4 taxis, as many South Africans do, to get to work in the morning, and the petrol price goes up, the taxis aren't taking that pressure on themselves. They pass it on to the customer. Yeah. And someone who's spending more than half their salary on transport, like a domestic worker or someone who's working in like menial labor somewhere, those people are not able to fight this fight. And don't tell me that government is helping anybody except themselves by making more than half the cost of every tank of petrol a tax. And that's what it is. It's a stealth tax.
And then I sit there and I think about it. So in 2010, they built some pretty slick roads, right? And then they got this company to come and put up these funny things that we said, no, we're not paying for it. But it still cost money for us to build like those 4 lanes, because my folks used to live in the West Rand, and those 4 lanes made a difference, right? We travel like they're looking at the N1. We travel those roads quite regularly, right? But nobody's paying for that. So how is that going to happen? Right?
Well,
so they have to find the money somewhere.
This is the problem, though. I mean, I don't buy that argument from government because before they started tolling us for the 2010 World Cup, which is the only bit of pressure that government's ever had to deliver, and I think they felt it maybe because Sepp Blatter was unofficially our president at the time and he kicked some ass. But the fact is, like those toll roads that were put up by Sanral, and Sanral has been managed very badly, and we know that they haven't had the best leadership, and they've given no confidence to the people of South Africa that they're actually doing what they say they'll do. Now, those roads, we should be building roads anyway. If the petrol levy is as high as it is, and more than half of the cost of every tank of petrol is going to government, that should more than be sufficient, considering that those are the people on the roads anyway, to pay for that road infrastructure. So don't then on top of that add more e-tolls. And let me tell you, those e-toll bills, even though they've got those cameras up and those gantries, and I think they thumbsuck that stuff out of nowhere. And also the costs they've never been able to justify. Here in Gauteng, people have decided they're just not going to pay. And the government here, the Gauteng provincial government said, we're backing the people on this one, which is a good thing.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. But also, I mean, you mentioned something which
you guys in the Western Cape wouldn't pay. I mean, you've said no toll roads that every time they've even suggested it, it's been squashed immediately.
It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Yeah, no. But you also mentioned something which is quite key in terms of confidence, and I think that's one of the things we need to work on. You know, how does government build confidence with the private sector? Because, like, I know that our topic is really about where we're at and stuff, and for me, the biggest, I think the biggest driver for us, or the biggest way for us to grow, is for government to realize that they are actually facilitators and not controllers of the economy. You know, they should provide a platform where the private sector says, okay, cool, I'm sitting on a pile of cash. This is where I want to put it. You know, it saddens me when I engage with people who've made a ton of money here. I mean, I suppose maybe I haven't made enough money to worry about these things or have kids to worry about, but you make a ton of money here, and you're sitting here saying that this place is going to the dogs, so I'm going to put it overseas. What will happen is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because you're taking the money that you've extracted from the economy, instead of putting it back into the economy, you're taking it out and it's sitting somewhere, maybe earning you nothing, but it doesn't matter. At least your money is safe, you know? So it's just, that's part of the work that we have to do, is try to convince people to reinvest here, or help them reinvest here, you know?
Well, that we've got to give them good reason to do that. And the first thing you do is you don't tell people that property is all determined by the capricious ideas of whatever government happens to be in charge. And things like expropriation without compensation are not going to bring investment running back to the country in any huge hurry. So, you know, expropriation bills, the idea that the pensions are not safe, I think that frightens people. And I think it frightens very sensible people, not scaredy cats, not people who are terrified of everything, not paranoid people, but sensible, you know, hardworking folks who've spent their life putting away a little bit so that they don't have to be poor in old age.
Yeah.
And now they see like, you know, some government minister saying, no, but we can use that pension money to pay for Eskom's problems. It's not your money, government. It doesn't belong to you. You've already taxed people. Remember, that money has already been taxed. You can't now take from it because those people have decided to save it somewhere. That's unacceptable. That's theft.
Yeah. I mean, on the one, I can't argue with that though. But I mean, like, you know, you've been around since '94. I've been around since '94, and since '94, I've been hearing that this place is going to the dogs. I've heard that ad nauseum, and here we are, boss. I mean, I look at
my favorite thing used to be those people who would say to you, "No, it's definitely going the way of Zimbabwe." They'd always say Zimbabwe, like that's always the most, you know, the most possibly horrible example of where you could end up.
And I think there's too many people that actually care in this place for it to go down the same path. Touch wood.
Definitely.
You know, I sit there and I like I hear so many of us complaining about where we're at and where we're going, and where we're at and where we're going isn't exactly where we should be. And that's why people care, I guess, because we should be a whole lot better than we are. Have you gone, Gareth?
No, I've just put you on the main screen. Don't panic.
Where we are is not exactly where we should be as a country. If you look at our potential, we should be so much further than where we are. But if I look at the intervening period since '94, this country has made some serious strides. We've gone back in a lot of ways, but we've managed to build a middle class that actually feel this economy, right? A lot of people have made more money now, like families that have been in this business, made more money now than they ever have before, right?
We have, as you rightly point out, we brought a lot of people, a couple of million people out of poverty. We've built houses. We have laid on running water and electricity for communities that never had that before. And we do have to take stock with a very reasoned approach. It mustn't be what you feel. It's got to be based on the numbers. And there are lots of things that have happened, particularly during the Thabo Mbeki administration. We were a really impressive country for a little while there. And that on any metric that you'd like to measure, we were starting to do things right. We were starting to get the economy up and running in a really, you know, persuasive way, not only for international investment, but even for people locally to grow businesses, to do things. You know, we had lots of smart people in control for a very long time. Of course, there are things that are endemic to politics, I'm afraid, like corruption. And
Mhm.
that wing of politics seems to have grabbed with both hands for about 10 years, what
Yeah.
Cyril is called the 10 wasted years. But obviously the whole world is a different place now, and I think everybody's kind of rebuilding, and some people are going to get it right faster, and other people are going to, with bad ideology and bad intention, they're going to stand in the way. Now, let's just turn our attention, since the burning platform often ends up being about politics. Let's turn our attention to where there's an ongoing problem, and I think that the fact that government have to be taken to court so much of the time in order to be forced to do the right thing is
Mhm.
a real waste. It's a real waste of South Africa's money and resources to
Yeah.
be compelling ministers, to be compelling departments, to be compelling the people who spend the money to do their jobs. And just this week, thanks to the hard work of NGOs like AfriForum, ivermectin has been made available to doctors to prescribe to their patients. Now, how government thinks it needs to be involved in whether or not a doctor decides what's right for a patient or not is bizarre.
Yeah.
The government does not know anything about our medical
No.
records to the degree that our own physicians and general practitioners do. And the fact that they had to be taken to court and compelled to allow people to prescribe this to their own patients is ludicrous. I mean, to see the DA this week is approaching the South African Human Rights Commission to launch an investigation into what it's called the government's tardy and criminally slow vaccine rollout strategy. Now, we know the DA is looking for political points here. We've got some elections coming up around the corner. So obviously,
but they're not wrong though, because like if you look at, sorry Gareth to break your word, but like if you look at where we are as a country, like right now the most important thing for us is to make sure the majority of us are vaccinated or immune, or not immune, but like have a much lower reaction to this virus. I mean, that's what's holding us back. So that we have to try and be faster. I mean, like I read a post the other day, a tweet that it's going to take us more than 10 years to vaccinate 75% of our population. Crazy.
Unacceptable. I mean, that is crazy, and it is criminally slow. So I'm with the DA on this, and we know that they're getting political points, but it's part of their job to do this. So I don't hold it against them. The health spokesperson, Simphiwe Mthethwa, said that South Africa began its vaccine rollout exactly 7 weeks ago with the Johnson & Johnson Sisonke trial. Apparently, to date, just over 269,000 healthcare workers have been vaccinated. It's a fraction of the target that had been downgraded to 600,000 from just over 1 million. Now, I don't know whether South Africans are just willfully ignorant about stuff like this, or whether it's much more fun for us to get involved in some cultural, racial bullshit story about a person who wears a Ndebele outfit to the Boulders shopping center. But that seems to be the stuff that gets the headlines. You don't see this in the headlines, and it's, to me, that's also criminal. Is it our fault or is it the media's fault?
I think it's, how did you find it?
Well, to me, people are just not as interested in.
Yeah, exactly. If you're interested, you'll find it.
They'll click on the headline about the guy who was chased out of the Boulder shopping center for wearing the better outfit. That they'll click on that more than they will a story about how slow the vaccine rollout is, even though the one doesn't affect them at all and is just purely a sensational clickbait story, and the other one absolutely affects their place in the world.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, I suppose, I guess it's, as a human being, what excites you and what doesn't excite you, you know? Some people will just say, cool, J&J vaccination, well, it's government's problem. Well, when it comes to me, it comes to me.
This is it. And now apparently,
it speaks to my culture.
Well, also people, I suppose, the media businesses, you can't blame either, because they are looking for clicks, and they realize that what people respond to is usually this gossip and nonsense. So you can't blame them. They're just doing what their business requires in order to stay profitable. But it strikes me as odd that so many of us are interested in stories about, this person being outraged or this person saying something politically incorrect when we have real issues to deal with. Did you get an email from Adrian Gore? He sent out some email about 2 weeks ago saying, that Discovery have got plans to help roll out these vaccines. And obviously private enterprise plays an important role in South Africa because we know that government healthcare is not capable of delivering to everybody. They don't have the resources. They don't have the ability to logistically manage it properly. And despite all their well-planned ideas, or in their heads, they suppose they're well-planned, to get an NHI, a national health insurance, up and running, it is still hugely dependent on companies like Discovery. Do you think that the private sector will save us in this respect?
If I were government, right, I would say, okay, cool. These are the vaccines that we think we approve for this country. You tell me RFB, you tell me Standard Bank, you tell me all these big banks won't say, okay, cool, we'll purchase it ourselves for our employees, because they know what downtime costs them. Medical aid, you think? I mean, like, for example, say me, if somebody told me that it costs like whatever $1,000 to get a vaccine, and for you to get a vaccine as a medical aid guy, you are maybe requested to vaccinate somebody in a more disadvantaged background than yourself. I'd be more than happy to pay for a couple. If government says, okay, cool, these are the approved vaccines, private sector help us and do what you can with your members in your because I think maybe some of the thinking is the fact that there's only certain people that are on private medical aid, right? So then they'll carry on with the inequality of this country. So only the rich folk will get vaccinated, the poor folk will not. But then it shouldn't be your problem, because you've got 57 million to worry about. If say 10 million are taken off your hands, you have to only worry about 47 million people. And if you put in a condition that, because Discovery and all these medical aids, nobody went to hospitals during the pandemic, I'm sure. So they're sitting with a pile of cash, right? Maybe they'll be willing to do more than just their members. Why not do that? It'll help us get the stuff done quicker.
That makes so much sense. And we don't have to vaccinate everybody, because once we've vaccinated the vulnerable people and the healthcare workers and all of those people on the first tier, and we start getting to people in their 60s and then in their 50s, by then we've developed sufficient immunity that the others don't even need those vaccines. So we're probably only looking at vaccinating maybe at an upper limit, something like 20 million people. And I think that's doable.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's why I said what I said initially, is like, government should just not see themselves as the enabler, right? They shouldn't see themselves as the controller. They should be seeing themselves as an enabler, not the controller, because we've learned time immemorial, this place, government tends to get in the way a lot of the time. We get in the way a lot of the time.
And I, as I said earlier, and I'm going to repeat it because it's driving me crazy. It's such a waste of the judiciary's time to have to keep forcing them, because some outside party has said, you know what, you're not doing your job. Just do your job. This doesn't have to be complicated. Anyway, moving on. Talking about those stories that distract us, that are actually meaningless and stupid. Tony Leon wrote a book which is not meaningless. It's a good book, and he wrote this book where he's basically looked back on his career, and he's giving us a kind of a retrospective of his time in politics, but he's also talking about what he thinks the future will bring. And he speaks very frankly in his book about the DA. He talks about Mmusi Maimane as an experiment gone wrong. Yeah. And he talked about that in an interview with News 24. Of course, anytime... This is just, it boils down to race politics again, which is so unfortunate. He's basically saying...
This is South Africa, Gareth. That's the thing. This is South Africa. This is how we were built, right? This is how we've been built for a while. In our heads, like, you see a person before you... you see a race before you see a person. It's sad. I don't care who tells you what. That's the South Africa we live in. I could be walking across the road. Well, actually, let me just give you another example. I could be standing at a door, at a bar, with a bottle in my hand, and then somebody will ask me, think that I'm a bouncer. I can go to a shop.
You are a substantial man, Yao Pepra. I'll give you that.
I could be at Eddie's or some shop.
I've been out in Cape Town with you, and even in Joburg, and people give me much less trouble when you're around.
That was a bad example then. But I could be in a shopping mall, and somebody will be asking me for a different size. I'm like, I don't even dress like I've got shorts on. I don't even look like I work here. Anyway, moving along. Sorry.
But it's very patronizing, and I agree with you. So unfortunately, what's happened here is, instead of people going, well, I think Tony's trying to say that Mmusi wasn't the right guy at the right time, and maybe there was a little bit of window dressing going on here, which I think people kind of said about Musi when he was the leader. The same people who are now complaining that this is racism were the very ones saying he was a model, because I think they found like that he was like a model in fashion magazines or whatever it was before then, and he was almost groomed for the position. Of course, they were saying that then. Now they're on his side because it's Tony Leon saying this. But Tony Leon said in this interview that he thought that there were things they could have done better around making Mmusi Maimane the leader and maybe having managed that process better, which is something that Helen Zille and Mmusi Maimane might agree with in times where a cool head prevails. Of course, because there's this element of perceived criticism now, Maimane has described the statement as dehumanizing and deeply offensive. The former DA leader said he left the party because his attempts to transform the organization failed. So on his way out of the building, he's setting fire to it. He says, I wanted the people to really be that party that sits in the center. That reason was rejected by the DA. And as you've opened up now, it's been a return to the Fight Back campaign and the consolidation of minoritism, which is not a project I'm willing to be engaged with, which is why I had to leave, Maimane said. That's not what he said when he left. This is now what he's saying. When he left, he was like, you know what, I'm finished here. I've done my work. I feel like I've made a contribution, but it's time for me to move on and do different things. That's what he said then. So he's changing this because he's hurt by Tony Leon's comments. Frankly, I mean, I'm from radio, and what happens in radio is they put you on a show sometimes, and if it works, they pat themselves on the back as management. They're like, oh, this was a great decision, and the ratings are good. And if it doesn't go well, then they say, well, you were crap.
Yeah, Gareth, useless.
Right. So, and I've maybe got a thicker skin than politicians, but you would expect someone like Mmusi Maimane, if he wants to be taken seriously, to be able to deal with these comments, to be able to say, you know what, and to be the bigger man, frankly, to say to Tony Leon, listen, dude, you were a leader of the DA. You might have done some impressive things, but you didn't exactly leave it the way I would have left it, or I could have done this better, or whatever. But this is now, we're seeing almost like a family feud play out on national news. It's not going to be good for the DA in the long run. This is very bad for the party.
Yeah.
No matter who you say.
Dude, like I sit here and I just look at politics and politicians, and I just, right now, if I could have it my way, I'd have like ANC nuked, DA nuked, and then the best of both find each other and they form this super party for us. Because right now, like, it's so sad for me, because for the longest time, the ANC has been like scoring gaping own goals, shooting themselves, but there hasn't been an opposition party that has been able to step up and say, okay, cool, this is the party for the people, right? There hasn't been a party like that. I don't know. For me, as a voter, right, I sit there and I think, who is the person that I actually want to vote for, not the person I don't want to vote for, And so it's tough. And like, I'm probably going to be engaging in career limiting moves, because I work in an organization which is currently funded by a DA organization, but this is not by any stretch of the imagination the views of my organization. Is just my views as Young Press. So me speaking to my mate Gareth. But it saddens me, because they're in such a good position to do more. I mean, they run a good province here, Like, for example, when was it? Last elections, there was a slogan that says registered to keep the ANC and the EFF out. That's not the right slogan for me, because there's a lot of stuff that I know that they do. Like, there's land reform stuff that they've been part of, which they should be putting out there. Like, irrespective of this whole expropriation without compensation, there's some good stuff that they are doing, which they should be putting out there. And I suppose they might have it in on their websites and stuff, but it just doesn't come out to the fore. And this nonsense comes out.
Of course, this is the problem. And we discuss this almost on a weekly basis on the Burning Platform, the problem with opposition politics. But I've got to say, like, there's something not right where the former leaders of the DA are getting more airtime than the current leader. So John Steenhuisen has to do something to right the ship and to tell these former leaders, whether it's Tony Leon or it's Mmusi Maimane, hey guys, listen, as the organization that you were both part of and helped to build, can I ask you now, as its current head, to please get out of the headlines and allow us to do some positive stuff? And if he doesn't do that, then he's not a leader.
Yeah, I don't honestly don't have any clue what happens in the party at all. I mean, I just work in a little agency that is funded by money that comes from them. But
Can we
yeah,
turn our attention to something a little less local, just for a moment? A lot of
sure.
people are very concerned about Mozambique, and the Mozambican government is really derelict. They don't really know what to do. They don't have any infrastructure or income to speak of. It's a country that's been mismanaged into the ground. In some ways, it's probably one of the worst examples in Africa. And it's embarrassing that in 2021 we still have to have the kinds of stories that we used to see in the 1970s and 80s from these failed regimes. But honestly, Mozambique is in this ugly situation, and like it or not, it will become our problem if we don't do something. Mozambique's president on Wednesday said that ISIS-linked insurgents had been forced out of Palma, a key northern town that rebels hit in a brazen raid last month, which is good news. It's the first substantive public comment on the attack. The president, Philippe Nyusi, said that the terrorists have been chased from Palma, but added, "We do not declare victory because we are continually fighting terrorism." Now, I've spoken to people who are much more in the know than I am, people like Jean-Jacques Cornish, who we have on the show regularly, who reads everything that he can about what's going on in Africa and has people in various parts of the continent that give him information firsthand. He says to me that the real concern here is that we don't have an AU force that can go and help, speed along the efforts of the Mozambican Defense Force, if there even is such a thing. And South Africa's, SANDF is hardly well positioned to do this too. I mean, we couldn't even help in Lesotho when we went in there disastrously a few years ago. So who will come to our aid? Because we're always looking for African solutions to African problems, as Thabo Mbeki used to say.
Yeah.
But in this case, I don't know that we have any solution at hand.
No, I don't believe that either. But I mean, you mentioned the AU, and with respect, I don't know. It's similar to me. It's similar to the UN to me. It's like a random
Toothless.
organization. Yeah, I wanted to say that, but I was like, it's not I mean, like if I was dying, I wouldn't be relying on the AU to come and save me, to be honest. So I will have to once again rely on the G7 to come. One of the big companies. And apparently, I read somewhere that Russia is actually the country that's actually helping them. I think last year or something, we were warned as South Africa to mind our own business by the rebels. And
that's right.
I mean, it's hard as a leader, especially if I know what my SANDF capability is, to go and look for other problems when I've got my own problems to worry about here. So it's hard for me to fault the South African government on this one, but it's an indictment on us as Africans in an African Union, because what does this thing stand for? How are we going to rely on the likes of America, who probably are not interested? No, they might be interested because there's oil out there. They might be interested.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, oil is not enough to have kept Total in there, because the French energy giant Total has just pulled out all its stuff from their liquid natural gas plant. And they've said
that was the biggest infrastructure project in the continent, I think.
It was, and now it is no more. And they've decided, sorry guys, it's too hot here. We're not going to stick around. Now that's very bad news.
Yeah, it is.
So,
it is, man.
Once the financial imperatives, once the reasons to go in there and make profit aren't even enough to persuade people to man up and to arm up and to go to whatever expense you need. In other words, the amount of money they could make was not worth the expense of people.
Yeah,
that's a hell of that's a major that's an admission of defeat like very few.
But I mean, like for me, I want to take it one step further and ask, what is actually leading to this? What is causing these terrorists to actually rise up in Mozambique? What is going on? Why here? Why now? How do we get to the roots of that problem and see how we can solve that, right? Because I'm trying to figure out where did this all come from, and then how do we fix that?
Well, I mean, this is the whole question. Is it really a religious ideology that's being forwarded by gunpoint, kind of conversion at gunpoint, or is it really a means of grabbing hold of resources for an organization that has political ambitions rather than religious ones? We don't know. But if we take ISIS at their word, if we take Boko Haram in the west of Africa and we take Al-Shabaab on the east coast as being honest interlocutors, then they're saying it's a faith thing. It's interesting that as a faith, as an organization of conversion, let's put it that way in the most kid glove terms possible, as a jihadi organization, if you want to be a little more hardcore, these guys seem to curiously focus their attention on places that can make them money, which should tell us what their real intention is.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly like if you look at where Boko Haram is, they're in the Delta. If you look at Al-Shabaab, they're on the East Coast on the Horn, and then like of all the places in Mozambique, where the gas fields are? Why?
And they're coming further and further south. So what's making people nervous, obviously, is that they're on our doorstep now.
Yeah.
We've got time for one last thing, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, Yao. We haven't talked American politics for a little while because, old man Joe has got everybody placated and feeling like they're under the regime of a charming but slightly doddery old man who keeps going, "Come on, man," but doesn't really have a whole lot to say. And when he does find himself,
you don't like him much, do you?
I think he's a bit of he's an empty vessel, to be perfectly honest. I don't think Joe knows what's going on around him. I think there are other people who are manipulating things from behind the scenes, forwarding a quite radical agenda, and just based, forget about all the ideological stuff that is or isn't important depending on your point of view. I'm concerned that America is spending some $10 trillion by the end of the last bill that was signed. $10 trillion. And they're using COVID as the excuse to do this. And they're saying there's a bit of infrastructure, but there's a lot of pork in this as well. There's a huge amount of interest group, lobbying group action going on. There are a lot of very strange agendas that are being played with. $10 trillion, Yao, as someone who has to manage money, we're now in cloud cuckoo land when it comes to, there is no way that you can explain trillion to a child. It's so much money. It's more money than has ever been in circulation in the world at any one time. And for the US government to be doing this is hugely irresponsible. We know that inflation is going to follow. We know that as a sensible monetary policy decision, injecting this kind of made-up money into the world economy, it may have short-term benefits, but in the long run, what you're doing is you're saddling your children and your children's children with enormous amounts of debt. And it's irresponsible for governments to be doing this.
Yeah. So I was watching John Oliver's show the other day, right? And he was talking about more or less the same thing. And you get the narrative that the Republicans pushed is similar to what you just said now in terms of saddling your children. But his counter was that if the debt is good debt, like if it's debt that will result in economic growth, it might not be the worst thing for them to do, right? I don't know the nuances. I don't know what is actually in the 10 trillion package, but my understanding is that the government before had the biggest deficit to date. The previous regime has had one of the biggest deficits to date.
It's about to get 10 trillion. So what do you do when you're in a hole? When you're in a hole, you keep on digging. That's what just. Of course.
But okay, so we wanted our government to throw more money at this whole COVID recovery thing, right? They've got the money to print to do this thing. It's like you're damned you do if you're damned if you don't. I mean, I know that there will be inflation and whatever down, but I'm hoping that they're smart enough to actually counter that.
I don't believe there's good debt and bad debt. Sometimes you have debt. Sometimes you have to spend. I mean, people will say that you having a bond on your house, that's good debt, but bad debt is owing on your credit cards, for example.
Yeah.
I don't know that for America, just because they are the world's biggest economy at the moment. And I mean, I heard Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say something like, well, we're the biggest economy. We can find 10 trillion. This is coming from someone who's never run a business, someone who really does not know how to manage money at all. I mean, she was a bar lady before this. And it's not any kind of, I'm not making a slight against bar ladies. Many of them have been very kind to me over the years. But I will say that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, to say that 10 trillion is not a big deal is ridiculous. And they're not spending, governments don't make money. Yeah. They have to use a proportion of the money that the people in that country are generating through creating value, through trade with each other. And for them to sign off a $10 trillion check, to me, is just a sign that America is going to hit the skids very, very soon and go into terrible decline. And remember, when they catch a cold, we all get very, very sick.
Yeah, but then in that same vein, if they're circulating $10 trillion, some of it might come our way, right? Our exporters might benefit, There's money in the system for us to fuel our economic recovery too, right? I mean, I don't, like right now, I don't have a crystal ball to see how this is going to look in the future. Like people say that this is bad and whatever else have you, but you never know what it results. If they build a whole lot of infrastructure, trains, train lines that they need to fix, the roads network and stuff, that it might end up being positive for the children going down the line. Who knows? But if
you're going to say,
but
if you're going to say it might be good for their children, and building railways like it's 1897 is going to give America a second try at an industrial revolution. To me, if you're going to make those kinds of gambles, don't do it with $10 trillion. Do it with a couple of $1 billion if you have to. It's madness. And all they're trying to do is artificially stimulate things. The economy is already recovering. America doesn't actually need this. The economy is coming back, and at record numbers in terms of what the economists in the US are saying. COVID is pretty much a thing of the past, so that's not an excuse anymore. They're on a spending spree, and it's outrageous.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to have to leave there. I appreciate you being on the show this morning. Thank you. So I know you only joined so that you could see Pumi, and she's unfortunately been waylaid this morning. But thank you very much, Yao Pepra. It's always good to have you on. And
always a good chat, bro.
Thanks for a good conversation. If you would like to suggest anything for the Burning Platform, please do, Gareth at cliffcentral.com. And Yao will probably join us at some date in the future with some more analysis and conversation. Thanks so much, Yao. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure, bro. Take care. Have a good Thursday.
Thank you. Yeah, it is Thursday. We've got about 10 minutes until we get to 8 o'clock. And then we will obviously have to end today's fun, and we'll be back tomorrow morning at 6. But it is a short week, like I've said already. And that means for many people, it's an opportunity to get some extra rest in. If you've got plans for the long weekend, you might want to tell us what's going on there. A friend of mine had a baby yesterday. Him and his wife. They gave birth to their first kid, and it was all very exciting. And I talked about WhatsApp groups. Well, he started a WhatsApp group, but he made himself and his wife the admins, and no one else can comment on the group, which I think is so sensible. That's what we want. And he's been giving us updates. So it was so funny because I suppose this kid was in no hurry to come out of the womb. It was meant to be born last week. And he was telling us, no, it's coming and it's coming and it's coming. And eventually, yesterday was D-Day. And for him and his wife, it was pretty exciting stuff. They were giving us updates. We were getting like constant, almost play-by-play on what was happening there. And it does feel like you kind of included, which was cool. And I'm just excited for them. It's their first child. And, in our little group of friends, it's very exciting stuff. So let's bring Sia back into the conversation. He is still in his parents' house in Durban. Have they all woken up yet? What time do they start in the mornings?
They have woken up, and then we were dealing with, I'd park them in, and that was a point of conversation. I thought, just take the key. I can't talk now. Family politics.
Are you coming back early, Sia, is the big question.
So, I think so. All my life I had to fight, but I can't carry on fighting like this.
So, Sia, I've got bad news for you. Headlines this week are telling us that vegans may have weaker bones and a higher risk of fractures than people who eat meat. I suppose that may be a surprise. Some people are not surprised by this at all. Yes, what do you want to ask?
Why is the world just out to get people who don't eat meat? That's just a thing now.
because we've evolved with these canines. They are there for killing prey, and incisors for slicing through meat. I'm afraid it's in your head, whether you like it or not. Part of our evolution.
This is a study done by the German Federal Institute for Risk Assessment. And they found exactly, so they have a lot to say, but rightfully so, finding and citing things like the fact that vegans have less calcium, for example, is linked to weaker bones and higher odds of bone fractures compared to those who eat animal products, otherwise known as omnivores, as opposed to just vegans.
See, I've said nasty things about vegans in the past, but none of them about their actual physical integrity. I've got one friend who, his name is Marcus, and he and his wife they're vegans. And even though he runs and he's fit, and they don't eat any meat or animal products, which I admire, because, if we're going to one day look back on the way that people behaved in this century, we'll be criticizing them the way that we criticize people 100 years ago or 50 years ago or 1,000 years ago. And we say, oh, well, you guys didn't have human rights. And one day they'll say, you guys were eating animals. What kind of, backward Philistines were you? But I think part of, you don't need to be a nutritionist to know this. Part of what makes the human species successful is the amount of protein we manage to get into our diet, which powers our very, very energy consumptive brains. And part of that protein is more easily found in animals than it is in plants.
Yeah, whether we like to admit it or not. This is
important. So this is not surprising to me. I hate to say I told you so. I didn't know it at the time.
You're saying I told you so.
It turns out
I hate to say I told you so, but I am. This study was broken into two. So they first combined, they got two groups of 36, so 36 vegans and 36 omnivores, and they took an ultrasound of one of both groups, and they did a whole assessment of this ultrasound, and they found that overall vegans had weaker bones. But then there was also a second part of the research, which they did a study of 55,000 people. So that's quite a substantial pool to be able to get to this conclusion. Right. And they found that vegans had 2.3 times as many hip fractures and double the number of broken legs compared to omnivores. If that is not hipster, then I don't know what you're waiting for.
We should not have vegans in our military. In any military force in the world, vegans are weaker. We do not need them. Their bones break more easily.
It's going to become a trend. If things like hip fractures are a concern, then canes are going to come back into like circulation. That's going to be the new hipster trend. Oh, but wait, I actually forgot to tell you this. I wanted to tell you the story about the most ridiculous and hipsterish person I have met in a very long time. Get ready to roll your eyes at.
I love it. Go. Bring it on.
At just how ridiculous it was. I was driving with my cousin over the weekend, and before we were on our way somewhere, and then we had to stop at a friend's place. I'm trying to be as vague as possible so that my cousin, whatever, my cousin will just have to know. It's his friend, so I'm not getting involved. And we rock up there. Already it's a part of Johannesburg that is a little old school. So it has what are those wooden floors called as parquet?
Yes, parquet floors, yeah.
Those very old school floors. As soon as I walk in, the first thing that I'm taken by is an easel. And I thought, this is like a point of conversation. And I ask, do you paint? He goes, and then he says, no. That took me, and I'm like, okay.
So what is an easel for if he doesn't paint?
It's just, just for inspiration. It's just, an arm.
What, an easel? An easel on its own, just standing there with nothing on it. Fuck.
So mind you, this is a guy well into his late 20s or early 30s, has a moustache going on, and
But
one of those
curly ones.
curly ones at the end. There is no reason in 2020 why anyone should be doing that. And this was the kicker for me. I think we each, like, whether we openly admit it or not, we judge people based on certain things in their homes. And I judge people based on the state of their bathrooms, I guess, because I'm just big on bathing and whatnot.
Right.
Went into his bathroom and I didn't even know this was a thing, but I found manifesting bath salts. So not just any.
All right, that's that. What is the bet that this guy, and people loved your confluence of hipster and people with hip problems. But what's the bet this guy is also? What's the bet this guy's also vegan? That he has very weak bones, and that one day all of us are going to have to help pay for his medical aid. What's the bet? There's a 90% chance of all of that being true.
There were so it's like different sachets of these bath salts. One is like for sweet dreams. Another is for blessings and productivity. And
manifesting bath salts has to be the new low in 21st century innovation. Like, if you are the person, first of all credit and all respect to the people who are making, because all it is ordinary. It's sodium chloride, maybe with a bit of coloring in it. But well done to whoever is clever enough to sell these morons who buy manifesting bath salts. And I hope you've made an absolute killing if you make that stuff. I hope you're making so much money from these dummies. And as for the people buying them, keep the economy going, fools. We need you.
And we had to take our shoes off going into the apartment. Like that, initially I'm like, oh, maybe it's just a preference. But once I saw the whole picture.
In case you knock his easel over with the heel of your boot.
Who decorates with an easel? It was like an old school easel. You can tell that clearly it had been used by someone before. So the fact that it's like pre-owned or secondhand just adds more, like character to it.
Okay, Sia, you need new friends. That's what you need.
No, he was not my friend, so I'm not even owning him. But that was just a pit stop, and I was glad we left. But I had to share that.
I just want to finish off with a couple of comments, some feedback on this morning. Theron's saying, such an interesting conversation, and I think the guest should be in government. He definitely will make a difference. I love his train of thought. Well, Yao is, he's busy with this Westgrow work, and I think that's partly why the Western Cape operates slightly better than the other provinces, because they have people like Yao in positions of authority and importance, and he's a very impressive human being. Moonchild says, nice guest this morning on the Burning Platform. And Alexander says, thank you for always putting your efforts in. Oh, okay, well, I mean, what else are we going to do, Alexander? Thank you. I mean, I appreciate that. That's what we do, yeah. Thank you for your service. GC, will you post the poem from earlier on your Facebook page? Yes, we'll put it on cliffcentral.com. I've already sent it to Dori, and she'll post it later today. Okay, everybody, that's about all we got time for. It is 8 o'clock. We will see you tomorrow at 6. Have an awesome Thursday.